We wanted to extend a warm welcome to you as we gather today for this Archer event, an occasion that resonates deeply with our mission to empower members of the diaspora to become active supporters and advocates of social justice and human rights in our communities. This event serves as a powerful reminder of our commitment to that mission as we come together to celebrate Iranian women through the captivating lens of photography, responding to the call of women, life, freedom, Jin Jian Azadi. We firmly believe that the visual arts, such as photography, have the potential to ignite conversations, spark change, and amplify the voices of those working tirelessly for justice and freedom. Today, we're honored to be joined by the creators of this extraordinary project and by esteemed guests whose dedication to capturing the essence of Xinjiang Azadi in their art mirrors our own commitment to empowering individuals within the diaspora. Through their work, we see the resilience, strength, and determination that define the lives of Iranian women, and it is a true embodiment of the ideals we hold dear. Our mission of Archer is at the heart of this event, and we hope that the discussions, connections, and shared experiences partaken today will contribute to our collective journey towards a more just and equitable world. By celebrating the spirit of Iranian women, we celebrate the very essence of empowerment, life, and freedom that lies at the core of our work here at Archer. As we gather to explore, connect, and engage, let us renew our dedication to the mission of Archer and recognize the vital role that we all play in advocating for social justice and human rights in our communities. Let us draw inspiration from the strength of Iranian women and commit ourselves to being active supporters and advocates for their cause. Thank you for joining us on this meaningful occasion. And we're going to take a step closer to realizing our mission and promoting a brighter future for all. I just want to say briefly a big thank you to our Archer president, Mihaela Campion, for getting Archer started and moving us into this direction. To all our board members, Calvin is one example of the board membership who's present here with us on this Zoom. I hope more of you can join on our Facebook Live stream. And our two guests with a third pending to join us a little bit later. So just for a brief context, the Women Life Freedom Movement in Iran is a grassroots social and political movement that emerged in response to the country's restrictive and discriminatory gender norms and laws. It advocates for greater gender equality, for women's rights, and for personal freedom. And its first anniversary was in September of this year. So to our guests, Najmeh Hosseini and to Narimal Nari Savafi, tell us a little bit about who you are and welcome. Naj, we'll start with you.
My name is Najmeh Hosseini. I go as Naj. Hi, everyone. I am an Iranian woman, born and raised in Iran, and then I moved to America 14 years ago. I'm a professor. I teach science, actually, but I also create art, which that's a part of creative thing that I always have done in my life. And I am living in California.
Welcome, and thank you for being here and for the work
you for inviting me. I appreciate it. This is a great opportunity. Thank you.
And Nari?
Hi, I'm Nariman Safavi, Iranian American, also living in Chicago for over 4 decades. I was a kid when I moved to Chicago, and I'm a former double major in chemistry and philosophy. That's why I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. But lately, I have been known mostly as a commentator on National Public Radio station here in Chicago, as a critic of culture and art and creativity. My interests are in what I call epistemology of creativity and innovation. And what I do is that lately I've become more of a cultural entrepreneur, trying to look at how we could, through dialogue, through art, bring about paradigm shifting and discourse shifting kind of a phenomenon. So I've been putting together events that are about dialogue through art. And recently I organized, with some help from the Cultural diplomacy people at the State Department put together a show called Artful Protest and Creative Iranian Women here in Chicago at the South Asia Institute Museum. And we had 6 women who came from Iran to participate in that exhibition, and it was very well received. And we just wrapped it up, so I'm still decompressing from all the pressures of that.
Thank you, Nari. And if you want to learn more about what Nari's just referred to, please visit our Archer Facebook page and scroll down to see information about that exhibit. I'm also going to invite the other 2 people present here on screen to briefly introduce themselves. Calvin, you're next.
I'm Calvin Mao, and I'm on the board with Archer. And I'm a political scientist by trade, and I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you, Calvin. And Mihaela, for those of you who don't already know who you are.
And Nari, I'm in Chicago as well. So.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mihaela Campion. I'm the president of the board and of Archer's board. And I work closely with Roxana and Calvin and other members who are not present here today. And I'm thrilled about this event as it's going to speak to us in different ways through the lens of art and also through the lens of women's rights. And thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you all being here.
Great. Thank you, Mihaela. And for those who don't know me, I'm Roxana Kazan, Executive Director of Archer. So let's get started. Naj and Nari, what does the Women Life Freedom Movement mean to you? If you can talk briefly about that. Whoever wants to start first, please take the mic.
Nari, if you want to start, please go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Naj. Ladies first.
Ladies first. So I'm actually, I grew up in Iran, and I spent a lot of my adulthood in Iran as a woman. And I've always been under that pressure and that oppression, and I lived there. My experience was that I left the country, and a lot of why I left was that the reason was that because nobody wants to leave their family, but living your true self, sometimes you gotta pay a price for. When I actually made some paintings about women in Iran some years ago, and those paintings were not even done. Like I did some drawings, and I was having this idea of this woman that is revealing and whatever, and it was just not developed. And then I saw the first video of those. The movement, and as soon as I saw it, it's just my whole body got chills, because this is something that every Iranian woman would feel inside. I have nothing against anybody that wants to cover themselves. That's absolutely right, and they have the right to do that. But people who don't want to do that and are being forced to do that, they always feel this pain, you know. And when the movement happened, I felt it, and the first thing I did, I got up while I was crying, and I completed that painting. And that helped me a lot to express my feelings in a form of art. So it is a very meaningful movement that happened through women. And it's important because women in Iran are almost like second citizens. They have less rights, they have less saying, and they're under a lot of oppression. And this was a very, very beautiful movement that happened.
Wonderful. From my perspective, it was really more as an Iranian male who had always witnessed the levels of discrimination and the bigotry against the women all throughout my life. I had always been aware of that, and at times probably just been as a male insensitive towards it too. But as you grow older, you start to become more aware of these phenomena morally. But when I saw the phenomena of the protests that broke out after Mahsa Amini's killings, was for me, it was a very profound moment in my life, in the sense that I didn't just see what's going on politically, but I also saw something deeper going on. And I saw this more as a cultural revolution than a political revolution. I thought that this was going to be something that the Iranian women were finally taking into account and asking for payback from what I call the historical Persian patriarchy, Iranian patriarchy. And whether that will be in the religious realm, political realm, economic realm, or cultural realm. And the beauty of what was going on in that protest was that it was not just a typical political protest, but it was much more of a cultural and performance art protest. What I saw was that people would be gathering, use a kind of a flash mob strategy to have these gatherings around the bonfire, dance and sing, and then burn their hijabs, their scarves away while dancing away from that bonfire. And by that, subverting two rules of the Islamic Republic. One was that they would be singing and the woman's voice was not supposed to be heard. And the second would be that they were burning their hijabs away. And I thought that is an absolutely beautiful poetic gesture besides being an act of political protest. And I thought that the beauty of all of this and the artistry of all of this is what's going to make it go viral, probably. And while the outside world always focuses on the politics of it and who is up, who is down as a result of all of this, what was going on was much more related to Persian poetry and Kurdish literature. The hair cutting that started to happen comes from symbolisms within Kurdish literature, where people cut their hair and drop it to the ground, where they're basically saying dead parts of my body will help regrow the earth and the nature again. And that just became an absolutely astoundingly beautiful act, where women all over the Middle East who are somewhat familiar with those kinds of poetic gestures started to emulate it. And you started to have women in Afghanistan, in Saudi, in Iraq, and then you started to have the whole Turkish parliament, all the female members of the Turkish parliament gathering in front of a huge press crew covering it, and they were all cutting their hairs. And then the women of the European Union Parliament started to do that. And this is no longer a political act, but it's an act of poetry and artistry that is helping it go viral. And of course, the women of certain culture actually, they pick that bug a lot more quickly than the men do. And it was absolutely astounding. And I thought we need to look at this from a cultural perspective and not just a political perspective. Of course, a lot of women, Iranian women of diaspora joined in. But unfortunately, I think a lot of the women in the diaspora soon started to just politically sloganeer and reduce it into politics and political demands, which are legitimate issues to raise up. But I think the Iranian women, some of the women that I was in touch with, the artists who are on the ground, paying the price, getting arrested. Some of them were in jail at the same time as the lady who just won the Nobel Peace Prize, Narges Mohammadi. So they were her cellmates, and these folks are paying the price, and they are doing the cultural work. They're not just posturing and sloganeering. So out of respect to them, I pitched some people in the State Department, said, let's quietly bring some of these women out as they're getting released through jail, get them visas, and put a show for them together. in Chicago. And we did that and we finished that. It was very successful. And they gave these folks 6 months visas. So I'm thinking about having them stick around the United States and maybe do something even bigger for the International Women's Day in March while they still have on their time on their visa. So I'm planning on doing things. And if you guys have ideas, fantastic, because this is going to be a global solidarity effort of the women's movement from all different ethnicities and nationalities.
This is great, Narimal. And, while we're on this topic of, the aesthetic, the politics of the aesthetic, can you talk a little bit more specifically about art created by Iranian women artists? What stands out about it? How about art created by Iranian women artists living in the diaspora? What are some conversations that they're having, the two groups with one another? Maybe some common themes or topics that you see emerging there.
Well, there is not one way to say that describe that. There are so many women who are doing interesting work, but the part that I was focused on were women who are dealing definitely with issues of patriarchy, issues of body autonomy, and women who are doing work that cannot be exhibited inside Iran. So creating a platform for them outside. They're dealing with body parts. They're dealing with things that could be taboo according to the Islamic Republic. So I'm just trying to create a platform for them globally so that they can have their voices heard. And that's all I focused on. But there are some really amazing work, like one of the artists that was here, she just went back to Iran a few days ago, Aneme Bagherian. She is a miniature painter of extraordinary ability. She is up there with masters of history of miniature painting in Iran, but she takes these miniature paintings that are usually about epic mythologies of Persian literature and poetry, and she turns the male characters who are the heroes into female characters in those paintings. I would say, in short, she turns the heroes into sheroes of Persian mythologies. And so those are the ones that I think are the most interesting. And those are the ones who are in touch with the grassroots of the movement of Iran, of women inside Iran, and are just doing fantastic work. But their work needs to be displayed outside of the United States, and it needs to be explained a little bit and contextualized for a passive observer who is not familiar with the Persian poetry and Persian culture to understand how precious all of this is. She has a series of paintings where women are almost half naked, but they're wearing these robes that are green, and she calls them green negligence series. And the women have halos, and these women look absolutely determined and heroic, but yet a little bit exhausted. And she calls them green negligence because the color of green has three symbolic significances. One is that in Persian literature, it is a symbol of nature and being in harmony with nature. Second, it is the color of the faith of Islam. And third is the color of the Green Revolution, which happened in Iran 2009 that was not successful. And by calling it green negligence and bringing that symbol of holiness, she is basically saying we have been negligent with nature, we have been negligent with our faith, and we have been negligent with our revolution and social movements, which is an absolutely profound statement. But if you're just looking at it without that context in your background, you just say, oh my God, she's a masterful painter, and look at the gorgeous painting and the colors that she has used. But it's much more profound than just a gorgeous painting.
Yeah, absolutely. As I hear you talking and taking notes here, Nari, I'm reminded also of the minimalist, if you will, work of fiction, women fiction writers like Zoya Pirzad and Sharnush Parsipur, and their work with picking on, right, these symbols as metaphors for like something, a different sort of like storytelling behind the actual storytelling.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
So perhaps this is a great sort of like bridge to going into the work that Najma and her partner, Jason Rivera, who will be joining us very soon here, have created. Naj, would you mind sharing with us your work?
Of course, I wanted to thank Neri actually for what he did for these amazing artists. I'm really proud of my countrymen, men who care about women, you know, men who care about the freedom of women. That's so beautiful, because when you don't walk the walk and you don't wear that, you don't know how terrible it is. So I appreciate it. I wanted to give you a little bit of history of how I met Jason. Jason is a really good photographer, and I met him in one of my art shows. He was just taking a picture of some of my art shows, and we got to talk. And then I invited him for my next art show, in which I explained to him some of the pieces that I created for this movement. Actually, it was in May of this year, and I created this woman that was half covered completely and half naked completely. So it was about the humanity of a woman, like a woman is human that is being covered. And he was just looking at this painting, and I was like, you know, this is for this movement that happened. So I started to talk to him, and he said, let's collaborate. And I said, I keep wanting to create a project for this. And he said, let's collaborate. Let's do a photography series. So that's how we started working together. And the day that I wish he was here right now, because he's a very good creator. So the day that we decided to start this collaboration, we sat down and I told him about those little memories that bring up these feelings in me, and the images that come with them. And I explained to him about the images. So his job was to bring those images to reality. So the first thing that we did was this image. I modeled for this myself. This was about a memory that if an Iranian woman is looking right now, they would know that showing your ankle this much with this kind of jeans, you might get stopped in the street by police. At least that was my experience when I was living in Iran. And this was the beginning of feeling really, what should I do? So I should, what do you expect from me, right? And also we created this movement of the cover that we created the movement, and we did several of these shoots to make sure that this cover is covering the human. And this is part of, as a woman, you want to have, you know, the fashion and beauty, and this is forbidden. This is the part that is forbidden. You're not allowed to show it. But we made it in a way that it's in a perspective that this is the dominant part of the picture. So that was our first one that was with that memory of this insane experience that I had. I think Jason's trying to log in. So this is a good time for him to.
I'm not getting the notification. All right. This is great.
So,
very exciting. More art is coming. Thank you for bearing with us. We're trying to get Jason to join us.
Let me explain another one, and then this is something that I'm very proud of making. This was the one that I had this experience of forcing to be covered head to toe. So this is something that I experienced when I actually went to Iran one year, and I lost my passport. So I went to the passport police, and they wouldn't let you walk in. Even you were covered, you had to be this kind of covered. So you had to have this big black covering on you. And every time that I would go there, and they wouldn't really help me to get my passport back, but every time that I would go with this coverage, I felt how I feel like in a cage, you know, and I feel like I can't move, I can't express myself. This is completely holding me in space, and I can't move. So this was what I was explaining to him, and I was like, at that moment, I felt like I'm stuck with this and the whole world is moving. And what we did for that was this picture that he actually opened the lens for a while. And I don't know if it shows here or not, but people started walking around us. So it was showing that the whole world is moving and I'm stuck here. This was the feeling that I had with this covering. This is a very physical body feeling that unless you wear that and hold it and try to go about your life, you wouldn't understand how it feels to be completely in a cage. So that was another one. We actually did it in a mall in LA. Do you want me to continue?
Yes, please.
The next experience that I had was with a swimming coach. I had a swimming coach that had a daughter, and this daughter was a swimming champion in Iran. She had a wall full of gold medals, and she was about 14. And I was telling her mom how exciting this is, and she should be very happy. And her mom was telling me that she's not, because she can't compete overseas. She's not allowed to go overseas and compete because she's a woman. She can't go somewhere that men can see her. So she's not allowed to swim outside of Iran in places that there might be men, right? So this was in kind of celebration of her, I made this picture of a swimmer in front of a swimming pool and not letting anybody in and not letting anybody looking into a woman that is an athlete and is doing something extraordinary with her physical body, which is, again, it's a forbidden thing to look at. We went through a lot of issues to make this picture happen because we wanted to have the best light, we wanted to have the best kind of perspective to show. And every time we did these photos, Jason definitely was trying to make sure that the perspective is correct of what we want to really express. And if you see in this photo, the perspective is more about looking down on somebody, right? Then I had the other idea that we talked about was how this makes a woman feel powerless. And I always believe that, although society can push women down, but a lot of families and a lot of men in your own family, your father, your brothers, can really pull you up, can really give you wings, can really give you the power of being who you are, although the society is really oppressing you. And that was really my experience. Most of this, what I'm showing in this project, is my experience as a woman. Mm-hmm. And, to be honest, the trigger of this was when the movement happened, when the Zan Zandagi Azadi, or Woman Life Freedom, started. I started talking to my friends that most of them aren't from Iran. I started talking to them about what I've been through in Iran. Mm-hmm. And to them, just hearing this was so traumatic. I remember one of my friends that is Armenian Russian, which is a neighbor country. I kept explaining to her how my childhood was, how my adulthood was, how I went to school, and all that. And at the end of that 20-minute conversation, I just felt like she got into a real emotional shock, because she couldn't believe that this could be a person's reality. It's society's reality, right? So I really felt like this project can create this place for people to see what I felt and what I went through. And this was this series kind of has a direction, going from that tightness of feeling like you can't even move to having the wings and not noticing them, right? So this is like, you have the power, you're a woman, you're a goddess, you have the wings, but sometimes it takes time to notice that. It takes time to really realize that you have that power. And this whole idea of covering is really, it really messes with your head, because you feel more physical than anything else. You feel that everything about you is about your body, and everything about your body you have to cover. So it really gets you to this down mode. And I really believe in the power that we feel inside of ourselves, and it can really free us. But the price that you pay for all of this is a lot. And a woman that was born in that society is going through a complete different life than a woman that was born in a free society. So then after that, kind of in a conclusion of that, we had this photo done, which was the most fun we had. This was a friend of mine that modeled for us, and this was a very beautiful photography session, which Jason made it very, very insanely amazing. I think he just joined.
Yes, he did.
Hi, everyone.
And this is kind of the end of it. This is the end of it. This is when she actually gets it finally out. This is when she frees herself. And this is kind of symbolic of what's happening right now. That women are starting to come out, to realize their power, realize their reality. Like, here's Jason.
Great. Thank you so much, Naj. And hi,
course.
Jason. Thanks so much for joining us. Please let our audience know who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll ask you questions about this project that Naj has just finished presenting.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. My name is Jason Rivera. I am a fashion photographer, commercial photographer in Los Angeles, California. I am very grateful to be a part of this project with Naj. It was beautiful to connect with her, beautiful to understand her story and try to help her curate something with my art, with my tools that I use to, open up to the world and show people what other people have envisioned that they can't produce photographically.
So, Jason, we heard a little bit about Najma's background in terms of her artistic sort of like topics and themes, the connections that she finds with the community around her, the way in which she uses her own experience to sort of like feed into the artwork that she produces. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do? What inspires you? What kinds of images do you gravitate towards? What is the role that people, and specifically women, play in the photography that you make?
So for the most part, we could start off with the first part with what gravitates me. I come from a mechanical engineering background, so a lot of things gravitate me. A lot of things of the world gravitate me. So when I started my photography career, I began with shooting landscape. I would travel the world, shoot different pictures of the city, the skyscrapers, leaves on the floor, even interesting cracks. But throughout my career, I've never really had a set goal for where I wanted to sit into the photographic industry. I just understood how to run a business and how to charge people. And throughout my career, gratefully, I have met inspirational people, some people I would consider mentors, who guided me into what I should see in certain industries and what industries are most lucrative. I ended up falling into the fashion industry, shooting for some reputable magazines like Harper's Bazaar and Vogue. And then I jumped into the commercial realm, where I could work with very big brands to create international campaigns with my vision and with my passions. I come from I'm a first generation Mexican. I come from not poor, but very middle class, very humble abode, very beautiful life with my family, very family oriented, but I did work in a young age. And yeah, so aside from that, that's where my career sits right now, is fashion photography. I love shooting men, women, but generally I do shoot more women, and I love putting them in outfits that are something futuristic. If you see some of my newest work, we've been using 3D renders and putting 3D rendered graphics on women. So different, extremely complex designs that you cannot create in real life, but we are creating it through Blender or other 3D imaging software. Aside from that, though, one of my personal projects, my passions, is to work with people and create what they want and see if I can break the mold of what an American male that I am, and really listen to somebody, man or woman, with what they have in store, what's in their mind, what's inside their traumas or their triumphs. And one of my favorite things to do is just to have them write down how they feel. And once they write it down, I get to envision it. And then I ask them, tell me a story, tell me something that made you feel happy, made you feel sad within that similar situation. How do you see it now, older than when you were younger? Questions that are very valid when you're creating something and trying to understand something. But yeah, that's just where my mind goes. I know it's a bunch of stuff to process, but yes, I am a working photographer, and that's, most of us are like this when we work.
And I'm muted. Thank you so much for explaining this and contextualizing the work that you both do. Thank you for sharing with us your project. So I have a couple of follow-up questions. One of them being, can you talk a little bit about the unique challenges or opportunities, I should say, that you encountered as you put together this project and you photographed the women?
The challenges, I wouldn't say there are many challenges photographically. I think there are some pictures that are outside of the studio that we took, where there were people that, there's people that just generally don't want to be photographed. So just trying to accommodate to everyone outside of like the talent. Like there's one of Naj just in the middle of the Grand Central Market, and I shot it with a long exposure. So I did a long exposure, added an ND filter on the lens, which allows me to take in more light in a lower f-stop, but still increase the shutter speed. This is camera jargon. People who understand cameras will understand a long exposure during the day. And I was able to capture a very intimate, make her feel isolated in a crowded space while using motion blur and just shooting everything in one take, right? Trying to shoot everything without having to do that over editing, because I knew that Naj would paint over this image and then create a different stylized version, which she's already has. I could see some lines that she's already done. I tried to keep my work very out of the compository, out of the Photoshop, and very just at that moment to keep it as real as possible, because that's just the way I've ended up molding myself as a photographer. So I don't really see anything as a challenge. I see everything as like it was hard, because technically I am an expert in this field. So I try to see things and they just click. Some people think you're like, wow, you're too fast. I'm like, no, things just click, and I'm very experienced and I work very, very quick. And because I also understand the client or the person that I'm trying to curate for, and I try my best to do the research and do the work so that we both understand each other and we both work together. And as I have a great friendship with Naj now. She's super awesome, and getting to know her and her life, it's a very beautiful story.
How about for you, Naj? You mentioned a lot of the ideas and the spaces that sort of like influenced and moved you towards designing sort of like the content, right, of these images. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges or opportunities that you found once you started the project.
Something that I really appreciate with this work with Jason is that he called me, you're the creative director. He said it to me at the beginning. He said, you're the creative director. You tell me what you want. So this put me in a place that I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. So I can explain what I want. But he has that artistic photography eyes that sometimes we would shoot a picture for such a long time. For example, this one, This one. Jason took probably 100 pictures when we were taking this picture. Our model was very gracious. She's my friend and she's Armenian actually. And she was enjoying it. And it took us an hour because Jason was not happy with any of it. He kept taking, and I was like, oh, this is great. And he's like, nope, no, this is not great. So we kept going and for an hour, even more. And then I was just realizing how good he is, how good of an eye he has, right? But then one of our photography pictures, which is so beautiful, this took 2 shots. So what I'm saying is working with Jason was so amazing. I exactly looked at it as opportunity, not as a challenge. We did have to accommodate to the light outside or the people outside or the movement that picture that we took in the mall. It took us a long time. It almost took half a day because we had to like figure out exactly where to go and how to do the photo and all that stuff. And sometimes that cover that I had on my head was not like getting loose or whatever. So it took a long time for us to take a lot of those pictures. But all of it to me was just opportunity to be around a very, very real creative person. Like he as he said, his background, he is a professional photographer, and I really like his photography. So that's why this project worked the way it worked, and he really empowered me to say what I want to say. That this is a good thing about working with an artist that knows what he's doing, and also somebody that shows interest in the project, shows interest in the truth about it. And Jason, I explained how we met, and you looked at one of my paintings, and you really felt it. You really felt this feeling that I have about what's happening in Iran, what's happening with women, and that's how we started this project, to show at least my story, my end of story of as an Iranian woman, that what I felt during that time and how I'm looking at this movement.
So let me ask you this: when you envision your audience, first of all, who do you envision? Who is your audience? And then also, what kind of emotions and reactions do you hope that the viewers will experience when they see these photos?
I wouldn't say I want my audience to be Iranian. I actually want my audience to be people who don't know much about Iran. And also I want my audience to be men and women. I want people to see what this story is and how this story is going to end. Like I'm telling a story with these pictures, and the end of it is victorious, right? The end is a woman that claims power. And I think what I want people to feel is actually pride and happiness, instead of feeling bad for me or for any Iranian woman, because Iranian women are very strong. If you have seen what happens, Neri was saying such a beautiful poetic way of, he put it in a poetic way of reality of what this is. This is an art. This movement was an art. So I want people to look at it and feel the pride that I felt for my women, my country's women. Yeah. To feel that bravery, to feel that proudness of, wow, look at these women. They know that their life is in danger, but they're still going to say, I'm a human, I have rights. So I guess to me, this is telling a story, telling a story and getting information with a story. Even when I teach in a university, I teach neuroscience, I teach things that might be very dry, but I make it look like a story. So it feels like you can understand it, right? And this project also feels like a story of this woman realizing her power.
That's great. So one last question about the project specifically. Did you discover anything new once you started it? Any sort of like surprising insights that you had about your project, about your collaboration, or about the lives of the women that you were trying to depict?
To be honest, this is what I realized. So Jason and I thought about like, okay, let's do photography and then let's paint. I'll paint on the photography and all that. And I printed all the pictures and I started some of the paintings, and I realized how heavy emotionally this is on me, because it takes me so long to just start one of the paintings. It's very heavy emotionally. And I kept thinking, why am I so lazy about this? Why am I not doing this? And I would do some other art projects and I wouldn't do this, right? And just recently I realized, I'm like, because this is your story, this is heavy, and it takes time, and art takes time, and you have to be, and Jason kept telling me, like, don't push yourself, you're the artist, you have to feel something to show it, right? And if it's heavy, let it be, it's okay, right? So I'm realizing that the connection of art and emotions more than ever, it's like, and when you touch the deep side of yourself, with like, when you feel like you're expressing the deepest thing in you that you've been holding back, because I live in America, I don't have those restrictions, but I grew up with them. So they're still in me, they still feel them, and they still are emotionally heavy for me. I think that was the most thing that I felt about this project. I enjoyed it 100%. That was just one of the best creative things I've ever done in my life. And I think it just helps you kind of self-realize, like get to know yourself more.
Great. All right. Well, let me bring Nari back in and ask, how do you see this series of photographs contributing to the broader conversation around Iranian women's art, Iranian women's rights and empowerment, both in Iran and globally?
Are you saying not just photographs or?
Yes, not just
Yeah.
photographs.
Okay, yeah. Well, I looked at, I don't really know Naja's work, and I looked at some of her Instagram pages and Instagram page and some of the images that were in there. What I would say is that it's definitely the voice of an Iranian woman resonates through, very much through, that this is an Iranian woman, and there is the issues that most Iranian women are dealing with is being attempted to artistically be presented. What I would say is that it is definitely an expat voice of Iranian women, because the color schemes are very, very tropical, and you can just tell, and there is a lightness about it, that somebody is celebrating their freedom also. That came through to me also. And so that was refreshing. And but the people who are working on inside Iran, they are trying to convey the same messages, but their look tends to be a little bit darker towards things, a little bit pessimistic. In Iran, it's almost like smart to be pessimistic. If you're too light about things, people might think there's something wrong with you. When I go back to Iran, they usually tell me, "You're not from Iran, are you? You must be from outside." I say, "Why?" Because you're just too optimistic about things. You have too much of a sunny vision of what's going on. So I would say Naj and I are in that way expats, and we kind of like look at it and we celebrate our freedoms that we have right now, but yet we have that sense of empathy with our fellow Iranian citizens who are trapped inside Iran. And that's about all I can say at this moment about Naj, but I also look forward to seeing how she evolves as an artist. It's all very promising to me.
It's wonderful. Great. Excellent. So anything else that you would like to add? Najma, Jason?
There was a universal, I guess, worldly understanding that I'm starting to realize the older I get, that a lot of people that aren't just pure American from America, generations 3, 4, 5. Not the word pure wasn't the right one, but just an American. Now I have Mexican, Salvadorian, and then American. I see a lot of like pain coming from our generations, a lot of like people coming here for the freedom, coming here for the celebration, getting to understand other cultures as somebody who was born here, and to understand and to see my mother and father's pain and then explain it to me, and then Naj explained it to me, and then a Canadian friend from Winnipeg with Indian roots explained it to me yesterday. Many different people have these sufferings, but for us to put in this happiness of celebration, of finding freedom, finding solace, and also expressing ourselves in a way where there's a possibility for a future with freedom and kindness and happiness, and breaking borders and generational curses. This is where, you know, my work with her, I'm very grateful to create this work. I'm very grateful to even get to know her and understand that there are people that have traumas, and that we can escape it and create something beautiful out of it, and then come back to the people that we escaped and to tell them, look, there is a possibility, there is happiness, there is a future that we can live in peace. So that's my end.
Right. I mean, as we know, right, art, as in all its forms, has been a vessel for healing, for resilience, and for empowerment for countless individuals. It really provides a safe space for the expression of this pain and sorrow and the deepest emotions that we carry within us. And these can be our emotions, but they can also be borrowed emotions from the experiences of those around us, or family members, or friends. But we can internalize our struggles and allow them to take shape, and then find meaning, and eventually release their grip from our hearts right into the world. And this is where celebration comes in, because we can speak about issues of lack of rights, lack of justice, lack of equality, and we can take them into this art form and transform them, and therefore liberate the people, right, from all those traumas. And perhaps we do, and I mean, surely live in a privileged space where we can talk about this, when we can create this art, when we can invite our friends, right, to be part of this conversation and to be with us, where we can learn from one another and grow, and continue to keep in mind, to keep the focus on community, on the idea that we're all here together, that we can create and help one another, and therefore, become better as united. So I just want to take a minute and thank everyone for coming here today, sharing with us the wonderful work you do, sharing with us your insights, and bringing a little bit of attention to Iranian women, their realities, and their transformation and liberation and celebration, right, through art. So without further ado, if nobody has anything to add, we can conclude today's session. And I invite you to keep your eyes on Archer's social media, stay with us, follow us, attend our events, and continue to believe that together we can change the world for the better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Great. So I'm going to stop the Facebook Live.